Okay, we are live. Peace, family. I chimed in earlier, told me it's going to be a little late, so that was good. All right, peace, Dr. Nicole Clavo. How are you?
Good evening, good evening.
First of all, thank you for taking time to come and sit and talk with me about your journey, Justice for JJ and the Healing 5 Foundation.
Yes.
Why did you pick Healing 5?
5 represents so much for myself and my family. So,
bring your mic up just a little bit, sorry.
So, one, JJ's football number was 5.
Mm-hmm.
He was the 5th grandchild. He was born the 5th month, 27th day. My daughter's birthday is the 5th of May, 5/5. I'm the 15th of July. So 5 just resonates, and so what better number to use than Healing 5 Foundation?
Real talk. So let's back up a little bit. Tell us a little bit about JJ.
Well, JJ was JJ. So from the time he was born to the day he died, very spunky, energetic little soul. It was a struggle getting him here into the world. He wasn't supposed to make it. I wasn't supposed to deliver him. And God chose to see differently. And I'm thankful for that. Even, once he was here, he struggled with some health issues, had a few surgeries before he was the age of 2, and survived that. So he proved himself to be a fighter. He, loved fishing. He loved to play football. He loved to joke, talk about people, play the Dirty Dozens. He didn't like it when it was played on him, though.
Yeah.
So he was one of those kids that would talk about you and then get mad if you got him back too good. So, but learning from his friends and everyone that knows him and how I knew him, he had took the things that I had taught him out in the streets with him. And that was one thing I wasn't for sure of, because we're not around our kids all the time. And so just learning from all of the young men and women that got to spend that away from mom time with them, they all have said that, he was respectful. He was always respectful, and, he treated the young ladies right, because that was very important to me, that he treated young ladies how he expected myself, his sister, and his grandmother to be treated.
Real talk. So with that being said, what made him go to Grant to play football?
Well, when my job relocated me here, we lived in Natomas. Okay. And so when we moved to Sacramento, to the Natomas community, he had to go to Leroy Green because Natomas Middle was impacted. So he went to Leroy Green, and then the following year they shut Leroy Green down. He ended up at Natomas Middle, and then he left Natomas Middle and went to Intercom. But one of his friends that he was very close to, that spent a lot of time at my house, was going to Grant. His family all had attended Grant, and him and his mom begged me to allow him to go to Grant instead of staying at Intercom. So I transferred him to Grant, and that's where he remained.
Okay, so what made him go out for football? Did he always play football?
He always played football. So I have some older nephews who played football, and so Jelon used to run around the house. There's like a couple of pictures, I think, on Facebook when he was a little boy, and he had my nephew's helmet on and stuff, and he would run around the house with his helmet on and his pads and stuff. So when we moved, we relocated to Fresno in 2002, and so when he became 5.5, about 5.5, 6, they started playing tackle football at that age, and so I registered him at Edison, Pop Warner, and he started playing football at 5.5, 6 years old, and he was a natural. He loved it, and so he stuck with it. He wrestled, and he played basketball and ran track a little bit, but as he got older, he just focused on football.
So as your son was growing up, what were some of I think having an African-American son is quite, could be a stressor, because he has to go out into society, and sometimes society is not always loving of black boys, if
Correct.
you will. How did you maintain that with him? He was a senior, right?
He was a senior. So one of the things I've talked about a few times is that raising a young black man was always hard. And so one of the things I would talk to my kids about all the time, because of the things I had been through, living in the South, you know, having parents from the South, and have experienced racism. Mm-hmm. One of the things I would always tell them, no matter how successful you become, never forget that you're black first, because that's what they see you as. And so that was one of the things that I would stress to my children. Once he became driving age, then it was even more important to me to teach and express to him that he was a black man. Because my fear was never that my son would be gunned down in his car by another young black man, but my fear was that, the importance was for me to teach him how to interact with police officers and law enforcement. And so that was a conversation when I handed him keys. I also had the conversation about being respectful, doing as you're told if you're being pulled over, answering the questions, don't smart off, because his mouth was as fire as mine. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he had a lethal tongue, and when, where, and how to use it. And so those were the things, you know, of importance to me to teach my black son. And then not only that, you know, when he became a senior, he decided he was no longer going to wear fades. He was now going to wear, you know, the little nappy dreaded fro, right?
Yeah.
And so now you begin to look like the lump that they, you know, group us in, right? Mm-hmm. And so you no longer look different than those that they automatically assume are doing something wrong.
We'll talk.
And so then I had a fear of him being profiled because of his look. And so that was another conversation we had to have. Mm-hmm. You know, white parents don't have to teach their kids that. They don't have to teach their kids that if you're in a car with 4 of your friends, you know, you're a gang, or that you may be pulled over if you have a hoodie on, or you may be pulled over if you have dreadlocks, or you may be pulled over if you playing a certain music and things of that nature. They don't have to worry about that. Asian parents don't have to worry about that. It's not something they deal with on a daily, but it's something that our young men have to deal with.
It's real talk. So with that being said, I know that today when you got the call that your son had been shot, what was your first thought?
Well, the call, so it was, you know, it was a Friday afternoon, and our practice on Fridays was, if it was an away game, I would take the day off, and my daughter and I would go to Grant, pick up my son's car. We would drop it off at wherever the game it was going to be, so he could drive home from the game and didn't have to ride the bus. And then we would all go to the game. This evening that we're speaking of was a Grant game. It was a home game. And so we had been just laying around the house all day, and we were getting ready to go up to Grant, across town, right? So my phone rung, and it wasn't a 916 number. It was like a 561 number. It was a strange area code. So I almost didn't answer it. I hesitated. And I had one foot on the stairs going up to get dressed, and someone told me answer the phone. You know, they just kept ringing. So I answered. The young man on the other end of the line I knew, was very familiar with. We used to give him rides to school every day. And he says, Miss Nicole. In his high-pitched tone. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, Jalan's been shot. And I'm like, what? So, you know, immediately I'm thinking, okay, in the leg, in the arm, you know, nothing serious. Maybe he's been grazed. You know, I'm just not understanding. I'm in complete shock just on this, you know, from the sound of his voice. Well, where is he at? They say they're going to take him to Kaiser. I'm on my way. We hang up. 2-3 minutes later, my phone rings again. Miss Nicole, they're not taking him to Kaiser. they're taking him to Davis. Well, where are they at? They're working on him. They're working on him. They're at the school. Okay, I'm on my way. Third call. They say he got shot in his neck. I'm like, they're still there? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this isn't good. You know, it's not good. Why haven't they driven off yet? They're still working on him. They're still at the school. Why, you know, it can't be that. It can't be good. So I scream to my family, get dressed. JJ's been shot. Everybody, it's pure pandemonium. Everybody, you know, scatters and we just grab whatever we can get, some shoes, and we go as is. We're headed to Davis, and my nephew's driving, and he's recklessly driving. I mean, we're doing 100 down the back roads trying to get to Davis, and you know, it's like almost 30 minutes from my house, especially with traffic at 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we speed down there, and as we're pulling in, there's an ambulance pulling in front of us, but it's just creeping. I mean, it's just barely moving. And I says to my daughter, I says, you know, my son is in that ambulance. He's not alive. He not here. She says, Mama, just pray. And so I said, baby, if my baby's in that ambulance, he not here. So we get out, we go into the emergency room area, and we're standing around for about a half an hour, maybe, no answers, you know, not telling us anything. And finally, I'm at the front desk, and social worker walks up, and she's like, you know, can we go in the room? And I'm like, no, is my son alive? And she's like, can we go in the little room? No, is my son alive? You know, that's all I need to know. Well, unfortunately, and I'm like, you know, I just turn around and I walk off, you know, I'm like, you know, no mother is supposed to bury their child, you know. I go outside, I walk around, you know, I'm just distraught, in shock. Like, this isn't real. So I come back in and I ask her, can I see my son? She tells me no. He's evidence. My son had been reduced to evidence. I wanted to see him while he was still warm. I wanted to see him while his blood was still in him. I wanted to see him. I wanted to touch him. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to say bye to him. And they told me no, because he was evidence. He was part of the scene of the crime. And so I don't think anybody understands how that rips through your soul and your heart unless you've experienced it, you know. And so it wasn't until the day of the viewing that I was able to see my son. And that was to approve the body for others to see him. So, yeah.
I'm gonna switch you over. I don't like the way this making all this sound. But I wanted to get some tissue. That was the other reason why I got up. Sorry, I'm trying to do all my. So let me get you that.
Quick intermission.
Yeah, that's all right. It's like family up in here. I'm gonna have you switch to the next mic because people say they can't really hear you. That's why I do that. I'm gonna turn this off. And I don't have to worry about that. Turn this off. So, so they didn't allow you the opportunity to see your son. I totally get that. But I also think it's something about when you hear certain words and you reduce people to those words.
Right.
I think people, and thank you for talking about this with me, because I feel like we got to start to see the human part of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so when someone becomes evidence, like evidence is like like a furniture or
It's
a
an
car
object.
or
It's, you know.
yeah, it's not like a human being.
Right.
Did they eventually let you see your son?
The funeral home, when I was approving his body for the funeral,
Wow.
the day of the viewing.
Wow.
Yeah, the day of the viewing. That's when I see my son. The day of the viewing. I never seen him prior to.
Wow.
Yes. So it was The funeral was 2 weeks later, so it took me about 2 weeks before I ever had a chance to see my baby.
There you go.
Yes.
Go ahead. Let me just make one more adjustment.
Okay.
Sorry. This one. Because I read the comments at the same time. Okay, so, okay. Which one is this? Okay, we should be good now. Okay, speaking to your mic.
Hello.
There we go. Okay, good. Okay, so I know there was a lot of media frenzy around your son's murder.
Yes.
I'm gonna call it what it is. How did you deal with that?
Well, it's funny because I remember the first day the media showed up on my doorstep. I was like, how do you know how I live? What are you doing here, right? And so it was Channel 3, and he knocks on the door, and he says, introduces himself and asks could he do an interview. And I said no, and I closed the door. I turned around, and something told me go back to the door, and I opened the door back, and I told him come in. I needed to be the one to tell my son's story.
Right on.
I didn't want anyone else to tell my son's story but me. I was his mom, and I owed him that. And so in that moment, that was the decision I made. I made that I would speak on behalf of my child, and no one else. They wouldn't be able to create their own narrative without going through me. So I took control of that situation and became his voice, my family's voice, to speak our pain and make sure that everyone knew and understood. I think part of it was that if I got to suffer through this, I want everyone to suffer through it. If I have to feel this, I want everybody to feel this. I want you to see what parents have to go through, what families have to go through, what communities and others who love your loved ones have to go through. And no better person to do it than his mom.
Did you have to hear anything about people thinking that he could have been a gangbanger, or because sometimes media does that? They be like, this person could, and it's like you don't even know this person.
You know,
did you have to deal with any of that?
Despite all that we hear about the media has been really good when coming to speaking on JJ's case. Now, I had to hear about that from community people, which is okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but opinions are like everything else. We all have them, right? So yes, I had to hear it. The accused mother, 2 days after, on November 16th, 3 days after my son was murdered, she went on ABC 10 on a link they had posted of DeMarcus and my daughter and some of the team players at a basketball game that DeMarcus had invited us to. And she went on there and she started, saying evil and awful things about my child.
Wow.
And I had no idea who this lady was. My son was only dead 3 days. And so I responded and I asked her, do you know me? Do you know my child? And she says, no, I just heard, I've heard things and this and that. And it said that she was from Vallejo. I had no idea who Miss Lindsay was at the time. I didn't see it myself. It was a stranger sent it to me in Facebook Messenger and said that I should look at the link. And so I went on there and seen it. So it wasn't until February that at the arraignment that I met Miss Lindsay in person and still had no idea. And the same lady who sent me the message back on November 16th sent me the message again and says, do you recall me sending you this message? I said, yes. So then she sent me the picture of Renika hugging me in the court. which was unexpected. In that day in February, I was able to now put two to two together that she was the same person. So that was kind of startling, because she also is the same person who knew her son was arrested on November 14th, less than 24 hours after my son had been murdered, and that her son had been arrested with the murder weapon. So she knew that her son was in jail, and rumors had already started circulating. So she knew what he was in there and what he was facing, but none of the rest of the world knew. And she's online posting negative things, already trying to build a defense for her son. So, that was disheartening. It was a little insane.
Why do you think that is? Somebody said absolutely disrespectful. I hear you, Khadijah. What do you think she was trying to do with that? Like, what kind of defense do you mean in public opinion?
I think in some of the conversations I've had with Miss Lindsay and messages we've shared back and forth, I think she was, she believed she was being a mother hen. I believe she believes that she was doing what she was supposed to be doing in regard to her son. I'm just from a different cloth. I don't believe in protecting my kids from things that they did. I believe they should own up to and take responsibility of their actions.
Right on.
I taught my kids that if you do the time, you do the crime, you do the time. And I would express and explain to them all the time that I don't do jail visits. I'm not a good pen pal, and I might not have enough money to answer the phone. So make a conscious decision if you do something that's going to end you there, because I'm not that mother. I'm just not. I'm gonna love my child regardless through it all, but I am not going to support your bad habits. You out there shooting, killing, stealing, robbing. I didn't raise you to be that way. We give our kids the tools. We try to, right? We try to give them the tools and provide them the knowledge to go out in the world and have honor and integrity and be honest and and we can't make them. I wasn't a perfect child. I gave my parents hell, and so I expected my kids to give me some. My daughter just turned out to be really good, and my son was me. And so, my mother had wished that my daughter would be tenfold what I was to her. Well, she turned out to be the total opposite, but that son, that 6-year age difference brought it to me, right? He was me, and he was a reflection of my attitude, my personality, my mouth, and all of that. And so, but I knew how to deal with it because I had been there and I knew what I needed at that time.
So that brings me to this, Dr. Clavo. So we hear a lot about police brutality. That's a big thing, and that's like a buzz thing with black folks these days. But that black on black crime, even though people want to debate that, until you have someone being killed by somebody black, why does that continue to happen in our community, for one? Because you talk to them about how to deal with the police and deal with them. But what about with your own black brother? That you may not come from the same economical background? Because I think all of that stuff plays into self-hatred with us sometimes. You think you better than me, or people like you more than they like me, or whatever. How do we deal with that? Because that's been going on for a good minute in our community, particularly since the 80s when the drug war started, or gang war. We can go back to the 60s. We can talk about gang war. But what do we do with that? Because the other part is that we lose as a community. Your son's not here. We're not gonna know what he could have did, or what, if he had children, how he would have contributed. And then we have this boy locked up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we get to lose. I mean, he could have probably gotten himself together. Who knows? I'm just saying, just in the possibilities. How do we deal with this, Dr. Clavo?
I think in the 90s we lost a lot, right? I think when it came to our communities, we lost a lot in the 90s. And when I speak of that, I mean, when I was growing up in the late 70s, 80s, if I walked on the wrong side of the street, my mother knew about it before I could get to the door.
Real talk.
I mean, I was in trouble before I even got to the door. What was you doing at the corner store? What was you doing on the left side of the street when you know you're supposed to be on the right side of the street, right?
Real talk.
We as a community didn't mind our own business. We was in everybody's business. We
That's
held
real talk.
each other's children accountable as if they were our own kids, because we wouldn't want our kids being caught up or getting in trouble or getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now come to a time where nobody wants anybody talking to their kid. Don't talk to my kid that way, or don't speak to my kid without me being present, or if you have a problem with my child, come to me. Why? If I'm being respectful and I'm being, a protective adult, why wouldn't you want me to talk to your child? If I can save your child while you're not present, why wouldn't you want me to help your child? Why wouldn't you want me to love on your child? We've gotten to, well, it's not your child. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, is minding our own business. And that's where we lost the village. That's where that village got lost, because everybody just want to focus on what's going on in their circle and not what's going on around it. If my neighbor's child, I know my neighbor's struggling taking care of their children, and then I know these children are going without a meal or need diapers or need milk, why aren't I being that neighbor that's letting them borrow that cup of sugar? Or when I go to the store, I know I have more. So why aren't I that neighbor that's helping that neighbor and bringing them some groceries too?
Well talk.
And so we've lost that as a community. We've lost that as a culture. We've lost that as Black people. And, we have so much hatred. You see people look at people. I mean, use me for example. People think because I have a title that means something. I just make struggle look good. I'm struggling too. I'm weighing a paycheck from being homeless as well. I'm not rich. I'm not well off. I have to go to work every day, 40 to 60 hours a week, plus come out and work in these communities. I don't get paid to do that. I work for free. So, if I can help another person, another human being up, and I can mentor, I can train, I can advocate, I can speak on your behalf, then I will do that. But don't look at me or anyone else in that matter and form an opinion when you don't know the backstory. You don't know what I've been through in my life. You don't know what I've experienced. You don't know where I've been or how hard it was for me to be where I am today. If you haven't sat down and had that conversation with me, don't judge me. Because if you have that conversation with me, I'll tell you the truth. I'll speak to you and I'll tell you what I've been through. I've been through more than most people can even begin to imagine. And so I think, jealousy plays a big role. Self-hate, hating what you see in someone that you wish you could be. And that's where, when you don't know a person, that's usually what's driving it. You see something in them you want. You see something in them you like. But instead of complimenting and asking, how can I get that, you want to talk about them or make disparaging remarks or say they think they're this way or they think they're that way, when that's not the case.
So how do we bring healing? What would you suggest in terms of healing? We have a lot of Black mothers who have lost sons, like a lot in our community, whether it's with the police or just at the hands of other Black folks.
Yes.
How do we bring healing where the mothers are?
Over the last couple of years, I've tried to just include mothers, fathers as well, and siblings. Everyone's welcome to anything I do. And I try to make the events I do twofold. So I like to have a healing portion of it, as well as something fun and active to do as well. To include them, give them that space, that safe space. Most mothers, fathers not so much, but most mothers, fathers usually are a little quiet, right? But most mothers, they need a space to vent. They need a space to be able to be themselves, be it curse, yell, scream, cry, just be themselves where they're not judged. They need that safe space. They need that space where there are others like them that understand and not kind of looking at them. You know, we have so many people who tell these parents, move on, move forward. You don't grieve long enough. No one has that right to tell you that. No one has that right to tell you, I don't care if your child's been deceased 20 years. That's your child. And if you want to speak about your child every day, then that's your decision. That's your choice. That's healing for some. You know, that's healing to a whole lot more than you could probably even imagine. And until, being able to give them the tools and the resources and removing the guilt from their souls. So many of us carry guilt. What could we have done differently? What did we do wrong? How could we have protected? You know, they play the what if game, which is one thing I always try to tell the parents that I work with, don't what if. Because you will never have answers to the what if, right? No one can answer that for you. And just continue to support and encourage that we're fighters, we're survivors. With one another, we can get through this with the power of God, faith, your higher power, whoever you call. I believe that, I firmly believe that I refuse, I'm a little hard-headed, so I refuse to allow them to take me from me and take me from this world while I'm still breathing, walking on earth. You've got my son. You took him. You can't take me too. I still have loved ones here that I'm accountable for, that I love, that look to me for strength. I have community people that look to me for strength. I got youth, those that were impacted. There were still 4 other young men in that vehicle when my son was murdered. And, I say all the time, if my son's death saved 4 lives, I'm okay with that. Because we could be speaking on 5 lives, but we're only speaking on 1. So if his life was laid down so 4 could live, I'm okay with that. I am. I'm really okay with that. But we need to welcome that space for these parents and for the, and it's not on, I try to include more than just the siblings get left out a lot, right? We don't speak on the siblings enough. They go through a lot and they're looked over. Even using my daughter, oftentimes people say, you taking care of your mom? How's your mom doing? They don't ask her how she's doing. They don't ask her, what does she need? And we have to start paying attention because our support systems is who keep us standing. The prayers and the thoughts and and the love that's sent and shared on social media, it is so appreciated. But our immediate circle that's with us every day and are feeding off of our energy and being drained by the lack of energy or excess of energy, they need support too. Because they can't continue to take care of us if they're not taking care of themselves.
So, in today you want to do what with your son for his where you're at with this whole case?
So, it's been 34 months. 34 months. Today was the first day we had a hearing at juvenile court. So, a little background on the case. Kimante was charged, the accused was charged in February of 2016. He was charged as an adult. When Proposition 57 passed in November of 16, a lot of cases were sent back to juvenile in fear of being appealed. So my case, being one of them, was sent back to juvenile hall to afford him the rights of 707 hearing, to be able to speak with the therapist and be evaluated and be given tests and things of that nature. So here we are, September of 2018. We finally made it to the first day of juvenile hearing. This hearing is for the judge to decide whether or not he will be charged as an adult. And so today's hearing was, I had submitted a bunch of statements from community members, family members, victim impact statements. And I also testified to mine. So I wrote a 5-page impact statement.
Wow.
That I read on the stand, as well as the DA asked me questions. And the court date ended with the therapist, the professional, the expert testifying to whether or not he believes Kimante can rehabilitate, which is that part of the process is still ongoing. One thing, I kind of ride the fence. So I believe in rehabilitation, that I do. I believe that individuals can be rehabilitated. I don't believe that all individuals can be rehabilitated. I don't believe that all individuals should have the right to be rehabilitated and released. And so I'll probably lose some fans saying that. But what I mean by that is that I don't believe murderers, child molesters, rapists should be afforded that right. You've taken something that people will never be able to get back. You can get back material things. You can get back, whatever other crimes that can affect you. But you can't get back the emotions that you stole from someone if you raped them. The innocence of a child if you've molested them. And you definitely can't give back life. And so for me, and in my case, I will never see, smell, speak to, hear my son again. I have to go to a graveyard and speak to a casket where there's no life. Speak to a headstone. I will never have grandkids from him. I will never experience him getting married. I will never know if he would have become successful in life, be it a trash man or a doctor. I'll never know whether or not he, what it's like for him to have his first job. I don't even know what it's like for him to receive his high school diploma because I received it. I don't know these things. I'm stuck with 17 years of memories and it ends there. And those memories, what people don't understand, are so hard to hold on to because they begin to fade. They begin to become so distant. They're so far that you have to keep replaying them. I posted a video of him that I post frequently this morning. I think I posted it last night. Was 2 weeks before he was murdered. That was at a Davis game. That was at Davis High School. And that was a football game. And that's me in the video pumping his chest, right, on the field. He was so ecstatic that day, right? He was so ecstatic. He had such a good game. And then, and then there's another picture, I think you posted it on your thing, of senior night. That was the week before he was murdered. So those are the memories I have left. So in a way, I'm so thankful to Facebook, because if I didn't have Facebook, I wouldn't have those memories, right? And so it's just tragic in so many ways. I mean, what we're doing to one another in our communities, what we're doing to one another, there will be no children left. This generation, these 90 babies are disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
They're fading away because they're dying at the hands of our own children. We have to get back to where we're all parents of all children. We care, black, white, and indifferent. I don't care who you are. I don't care if your neighbors are Asian, white, Mexican. I don't care. We have to get back to parenting our community. A village, my undergrad was in community psych. And it took in, community psych was about taking everything into consideration, be it your school, your church, your family, your community, all of that comprised of who you become. That's how you're developed, because all of that plays a role in your daily life. Whether you speak to your neighbors or not, that has an effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
That has an effect on you, whether, you speak to the neighbors on the next block. I know all my neighbors on my street. I know them all by name, husband and wives. I know their kids, because it's important to me that I know who I'm living around. It's important to me that even if the engagement is just a simple conversation on the lawn, that we have that engagement, because I need to know who's living next door to me. I need to know what type of people are living next door to me. I need to know, if not for safety, just because that's the neighborly thing to do. I called all my neighbors growing up auntie, mom, the number 2, mom number 3, and things of that nature. We were all that extended family, that La Familia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
someone asked a question on the feed. How do you think he should be charged in your? What do you think?
I believe he should be charged as an adult. I have no qualms on saying that. That's my firm belief. I think he should be charged as an adult. I believe the thing with my case is that he had knowledge of gun use. He knew the dangers of guns. His mom openly have discussed and shared pictures of them at the gun range. He knew the consequences of firing that gun. He knew the damage that gun could do. This wasn't a video game. He wasn't playing Grand Theft Auto or some old crazy war game. He was playing real life. He made a conscious decision to not only pick up a gun, but walk up to the window at a stop sign at the passenger side of my son's car and shoot into it with no regard to the lives that was in there. He could have shot any of the 5 in there, and he shot 2 of them. And once again, I'm thankful that we're only talking about the loss of 1 life and not the loss of multiple. But when he made that decision, I'm still a little confused. How do you make that decision? How do you decide in broad daylight at 3-something in the afternoon? I shared in a courtroom today that 3 weeks or so later, when I went to recover my son's vehicle, it was crazy. My daughter and I went, and there was blood all over the car, blood all over the seats. He had cream color seats like your couch that sits here. And the fried chicken was still sitting in the car that they went to retrieve.
Wow.
From Popeyes. The fried chicken was still in the car. And to have to sit and think that my child left campus to go get some fried chicken, which he really wasn't even a big chicken eater, so he went to take his friends to get this fried chicken from Popeyes and lost his life on his way back to return to his safe haven, which was his school. So yes, to answer your question, I believe he should be tried as an adult because I think he made an adult decision. I think he should be face adult consequences.
Real talk. As we wrap up the interview, what are some of the things you want us to consider when we think about or talk about safety in our communities?
I think we need to, as adults, stop being friends with our parents, to our kids. My parents were never my friends, and they drew a real real line. In making sure I understood that they're my best friends today. It's nothing I can't share and talk to my parents about. We do everything together, but it took us time to get there. I wasn't mature enough as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult to understand that. I'm mature enough now in my 40s that I understand the reasoning behind them setting that standard. We have to begin to pay more attention, spend more time. Stop allowing these videos, these TVs, these video games, the streets to raise our kids. We have to take back raising our kids. We got to take back being that village. We got to take back being that community that cares and cares for everyone, not just our own. Cross county line, not just in one neighborhood, but in all neighborhoods, in all communities. Our kids are associating with one another through social media, where we're crossing communities and crossing lines. So I definitely think that as parents, being more responsible, being more accountable, being more effective, being if you need help, expressing that you need help, that you may not have had anyone in the home to show you how to be that parent. It doesn't come with a book. But don't be scared or embarrassed to reach out and ask for someone to help you. There's a lot of successful adults and family and friends out here that can help you guide your child in the right direction. And I think they should reach out and attempt to do that.
Question, I forgot to ask this question. Do you think that it's ever possible for you and the accused mother to ever have any kind of healing between the two of you?
So here's the answer to that question.
Okay.
I have never once said anything disrespectful or ill-willed towards Miss Lindsay. I have done nothing but prayed for her family, and she knows that. I've expressed that to her. She and I have had conversations. She's messaged me. I've messaged her in return. And I have told her on occasions that we will sit down and talk. When I felt that it was time and I felt that she was ready. So many things that she has done to other mothers who have lost children, things that she has said, ways that she has acted, ways that she has spoken, has led me to believe that she wasn't ready to really sit down and have that conversation. And then framing the conversation, right? Framing really what is it that you want to have a conversation with me about. Because you're not taking any onus. You're not taking any responsibility of why we're here. Even today, I walked out the courthouse and we were on a 15-minute break. And her and the young women she was with had nothing but negativity to say when I walked by. Talking loud, making sure that I heard them, screaming his innocence and how this and that and how I'm just about fame. Fame usually come with money. I'll give me the money, and really you can have everything that you feel that I have. If you can give me my son back the way he left November 13th around 2:30, 3 o'clock. If you can give me him back, you can have whatever you feel I have. I give you the shirt off my back. Bring me my son back. But if you can't, now you're stuck with hearing my mouth. You're stuck with seeing me. You're stuck, yes, I'm going to take every opportunity I can to express my emotions, express my sadness, express how I feel. Every opportunity I get, I'm going to take it because you're stuck with hearing my son's name and hearing my story. Until I take my last breath, I will be speaking of him. And if chosen for other parents who choose me to be their voice, I'll be speaking up for them as well. We're all in this together. We're a family, so when Miss Renika, when I feel that time is there, I'll be willing and ready to sit down with her. But I just don't feel that in my soul. I don't feel that in my person because she goes back and forth. She has her good days. She has her bad days where, she, wants to be, on the ground running and want to be part of the change, but then here she comes with some negativity. So my personal opinion, she's not ready on that level, and that's where I'm at with that.
What's next for you?
I'm opposing SB 1391, Senate Bill 1391. I'm firmly against it.
What is that bill?
Senate Bill 1391. Here I go, Gary, lose fans again.
No,
Senate Bill 1391.
You never know. A lot of people don't say nothing, but it's in their heart too, because when you bully people to believe what you believe, they basically go and vote their conscience. But that's another story.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
So I posted something a few days ago in regards to 1391. 1391 is going to roll us back into the 80s, right? It's a bill that Senator Holly Mitchell and Senator Lara has co-authored, and it states that 14 and 15-year-olds, no matter what the crime is, will not be charged as adults. So whether I put a gun to your head right now and assassinate you, or I rob a piece of bubble gum, there's no way I will be charged as an adult. I have no problems with streamlining, putting some parameters around 1391, but I don't think there should be a blanket over it to where murderers who have long records, who have been in and out of jail, out of juvenile hall, who've done attempted murders or whatever before, and are back home before we can sneeze. And this bill directly affects my case.
It's
SB, Senate Bill 1391. And this bill directly affects my case. It's passed both houses already. It's sitting on the governor's desk to be signed. It's been sitting there since August 30th. If this bill is signed, it is there's a chance that Mr. Cimante will not be charged as an adult anymore, and he will be home in a couple of years. He's already been in juvenile hall 3 years. Max he can stay in CDCR, DJJ custody is 24 and a half, 25. So he's turning 18 if he's not 18. So at the max, he'll be gone 7 years if convicted. I'm not good with that. So call Governor Brown's office. Call him. I tweet him every day to veto Senate Bill 1391. I think we need to go back to the drawing table. I don't know any mother, and I can't say I've talked to all the mothers in California, but I don't know any mother who was asked how they felt about Senate Bill 1391. I don't think victims, mothers, fathers, families, communities' opinion was taken into consideration, who've experienced tragic loss from the hands of 14 and 15-year-olds. And so I think that bill needs to be looked at again. It flew through so fast, no one was aware of it. And so call Governor Brown and tell him you don't like it, to veto it, and let's start over from ground zero.
How do people get in contact with you at the Healing 5 Foundation?
My number is 916-895-8135.
895 what?
8135.
8135. Okay. I'm posting that up, family.
Or I'm online all the time. You guys see me on Facebook. Healing 5 has a Facebook page as well.
Wow. Thank you
as well as a website.
Okay. What's your website?
I don't know. No. It's the Healing 5 number 5 foundation.com.
I'm typing that on here. Oh yeah, that's right. I know I wear glasses. Foundation.com.
Or org, either will take you there.
Okay. Thank you so much for making time to sit down and talk to me. I think this is near and dear to our hearts. I think this is an issue in our community that we don't talk about because it's not sensationalized, and you don't get to blame white people.
Right.
You have to look at your own stuff, how you wear, how we have to take the excuses and throw them out. Because I think when people are dead, you don't get the right to talk crap.
No.
You just don't. You don't get the right to tell people how they should feel. Like, I think that's probably the most disrespectful thing ever when people do that. But this person is never ever coming back.
Never coming back. And you know what? I don't care if the individual was a gangbanger,
I
a
don't
car
care at
thief, a robber. I don't care what they've done. No one has a right to take a life.
I agree, and I think you can't try to talk yourself out of it. And I think that's how you get people to vote their conscience, because probably more of us would be victims of another person killing us than, say, the police. And I'm not a supporter of the police. I just think sometimes we give them too much energy. And the real issue we don't want to look at, because that means we would have to be more responsible as a people to rear our kids and to be more involved in their life and to be honest about when our kids got real problems. If your kid come home smelling like a bunch of weed and you know that this change is going around,
home that don't belong to them, bikes and cars, and you didn't pay for it.
So I'm just saying, so it's this accountability and responsibility piece, and we can't keep putting that on other people, because we only can be accountable to ourselves. So thank you. Whatever I can do to support you, I am so great to do that. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. We got a lot of views, and whatever you want to talk about, let me know. Everybody's talking about how calm you are. So if you get a chance, go in there and kind of answer people's comments if you want to. People usually go in and be like, "Oh, thank you," blah, 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 when they're on the show. So they would love to hear from you. And thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to go. You have to stay here and be like a model, because then I got to go shut this thing off.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
What's the website again?
The Healing 5 Foundation with the number 5.com.
All right, thanks, family.